Hey guys, welcome to my update on Alien Revenge with my upgraded pathfinding code. A ton of upgrades. I've rebuilt the logic of the Alien Revenge game. So instead of using the default CopyCube API to send the alien, the CCB moved to command, converted back to doing it myself, controlling the rotation and everything. It's because it's a little bit more accurate because I can interact and change the behavior of the alien with a little bit more control. So I found overall that was a better method. And previously I'd be putting these path nodes in some radical corner right off in the middle of the corner there, so you're hidden into the screen because it had to be so far away for the alien. Once it touches the outer bounding box to the node, it would change directions, whereas I don't want to do that. I want it to walk over the node directly. So it's just much easier. So you can put it smack in the middle. Then that's the optimal way for when you're going both directions. Put it smack in the middle. It ended up being a lot easier for placement of the nodes. Now another improvement I've got is when checking for the closest node, either to the player or the alien, when it gets stuck. What the big problem used to happen before was I was only using on distance check what was the closest distance, and that turned out to be really by itself not good enough, because it would, if for example you're underneath this the walkway and there was a node just up on top there, it would pick that one up there and try and go through the roof, or as you saw in other videos when it was walking down this way, it would pick up this node here and try and go there directly, but it couldn't obviously because it's you have to go through the path to get there. And so in other words, I changed it so that it does a collision check on the local nodes that it's in visible range. So in other words, it's not going to pick up nodes that might be very close to it, but it's through the wall or above the ceiling or below the player. It's not going to pick up any of those nodes at all, only the ones it can actually see from its existing position. So that worked out quite well. Okay, so the code for that there, so it does a collision point, checks the collision point between each of the local nodes. So I'm doing it before and after within a certain, just in case you've jumped off an edge, you need to check ahead a bit further to cover that scenario. I've gone way before and after, but I don't need to check the whole array, of course, just the local ones before and after the last main path ID that it's using. And so that from the position height of the alien, look just above near the head height, looking down towards the position, it does a collision check. If it does collide with it, then it gets the collision point and it asks, does the line collide with the bounding box of that actual node that you're looking for? And if it does, it means it's within view range. And if it's not, it means it's obstructed behind something. So in other words, generally speaking, don't go there, don't include that in the list of local nodes. So that was a big improvement as well. So every part of this game I've upgraded it. Before I had a whole main parent folder called paths, and I would just cycle through in order, backwards and forwards, based on the child node position. But I found that to be not a very good method either, because when you're adding and removing paths, especially when you're adding new paths, it's a pain in the ass, because you've got to then unlink each of these paths. It could be 150 or more paths. You've got to then unlink manually and manually link it back together each and every single time. That's crazy. So what I ended up changing that was just simply chuck the whole list of them there in a folder, just for organizational skills, but you don't really need to put it anywhere. And I just simply look up the name, get the node from the name. I mean, it's probably a little bit slower in the game engine, but it happens so quickly that it doesn't seem to make any difference. So I'm getting the node from the same name now. So this node there I could put that anywhere and the game will find it. So long as there's only one version of it, that's alright. So in other words, they don't need to be in index order from the parent folder anymore. So that's another improvement. So you can add and remove nodes as you like without needing to reorder the entire thing, because that was a weakness. And yeah, basically rebuilt everything. So the code now is fairly sophisticated, I have to say. It's about 750 lines. It's almost as big as my main Saturn 7 game. That's almost 1,000 lines. So just the AI itself, it's made up of a whole stack of different functions, and it just calls individual functions when it needs it. It'll call that up. and so you know, a lot of it's not just sitting there until it's needed, so it doesn't need to check the whole thing. It just goes through a fixed state machine, so it goes from one state to the next. So I've got different modes, you know, like tack mode, stuck mode, pathing mode, and follow mode. And there's a wait mode as well. That's pretty much what I've got everything at the moment. I'll probably have a patrolling mode later, but really, yeah, for the most part it's pretty good. And so it'll go through those modes. There's pathing mode. Now this is just the main override. So at any point, if the player's within a certain distance and a few other things are matched, it'll attack. And then after that, highest priority after that would be, if the player is supposed to be moving and he can't move, it's stuck, and then it will go through a whole procedure to try and unstuck itself. I've got quite a long list of things it goes through in order to unstuck itself. So here's the mode stuck here, goes all the way down to 249, so all that. So it goes different attempts. It'll try one after the other. It'll first try and pathfind, so it increases the stuck number. So this is the first time it tries. If it fails, it's still stuck after running that, then it'll run this one. If it's still stuck, then it'll run that one. Still stuck, that one, then that one. Yeah, so it's got quite a comprehensive way to get out of being stuck. It seems to work quite well, actually. Now these days, I can't get it to break. I keep trying it and make adjustments, and try and break it all the time, and it's getting very hard to break it now. So in other words, it's getting a lot better. So if it's not stuck and it's within a certain distance, it'll try and follow the player. If it's seen the player, so it's checking that it's actually seen the player. Yeah, if it's not stuck, in other words. It's a whole lot of little detailed sophistications that go into this code to do certain things at different times. The more you play with it, the more detailed, sophisticated the code has to become. But that's basically the main overview, and it works quite well. So this is a function. Why I've called it this name of the function with this in front of it, it's because this is a behavior that I'm going to attach to an alien. I want to attach that same behavior, the exact code, to different aliens, and I don't want to conflict the variable names, of course. And so I'm using this all over the place. So this mode, this everything. Aliens always, it's talking about this particular code in this behavior. So when another alien running the exact same code, it'll be using effectively different variables, even though it's the same variable name, because you've got this in front of it. So in other words, there won't be any conflicts. So another alien can do something completely different running the same code, because it's at a different position. That's why I needed to put all the actual functions also as this, because in the function itself I'm referring to different this things as well. So it won't actually work if you don't have this function as well as using the variables with this in front of it. I've got global functions, but that's from the player's point of view. It's just a global variables. There's no problem there. But the information about the alien is always this. Yeah. So in other words, yeah. So I'll have different aliens hopefully, and they're all running around doing different things, all calculating their own movement separately. So that'll be fun. So you can see that a lot of this is there's a lot of this. Okay, so I just throw in these side paths here. There's not that many at the moment. I'll add a few more in. I'll be running out of letters of the alphabet eventually, so I'll have to come up with something a little bit better. But anyway, I'll have a look at the a demo I've just done an hour ago and have a look at how that's going. So when I'm debugging the game and trying to fix it up, obviously I'm putting all the different variables in the screen. I'm changing it from this to a global variable and then accessing the global variable on the 2D overlays, and that's how I can try and monitor what's going on, and if there's a problem then work out how to fix it. So all these 2D overlays are running very quickly. Then again, they probably don't need to run that fast. They're running every 20 milliseconds. I probably don't really need it that fast. The main code of the game actually only runs every 250 milliseconds. So this small part is for door checking and attack and so forth, but the main part of the game actually runs every 250 milliseconds, so it actually runs quite well. Even 300 milliseconds or a bit more still runs quite good, but 250 is a little bit better. Yeah, so it doesn't need to run that fast, and yeah, performance-wise, it runs pretty good actually. I'm checking if I can follow the player. I have a few things I got to check, and if I can't follow the player after all that, then just revert back to pathing if we're not already pathing. So that's how I've done that. So in the previous video, you saw a few times when the alien went off into a bit of its own path to an area away from the player. I've sort of fixed that mostly. It's got to do with how often do we follow the player within a certain amount of time. So I had to limit that because that was causing issues. Sometimes it works good to follow the player immediately when it's within certain distance, and other times it actually doesn't because it overrides the pathing behavior when sometimes it's actually better to path. So most of my problems with the AI has all got to do with the alien, instead of going through its path procedure to the player, is directly going straight forward towards the player. So in other words, I call it follow, but really it's just like chasing down the player directly, heading straight forward to them. Pretty much all my problems in the code is came from that, doing that, because it then goes off the path, and then if it ever gets stuck or can't get to the player, it's then got to work out, okay, where do I go from here? There may not be any paths in sight for it to then work out a path to get to the alien. So it caused an enormous amount of problems. I was almost going to pull it out of the code, of the AI code here on this behavior. But it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny when it just takes a shortcut straight for the player and jumps over things. It's hilarious, actually, I find, anyway. So I thought I kept it in here, and I just worked around it, and I managed to get it to work quite good even still. But that's pretty much the cause of all the main problems I've had, is telling the alien to chase the player down, to ignore the pathing, you know. I found a few workarounds for that, so it seems to be working quite well. I'll show you the demo of this video I just recorded. Alright, so I'm playing a video, I'm just stopping and starting, so I've got a whole stack of variables. So this is the player information here, and this is the alien. All the rest of it's got to do with the alien, actually. The player stats are pretty consistent, work quite consistently quite well. It's the alien we're working with here mainly. So here start off with a path outline. It's going from A35 to A56. The player is already at A56. That's decided and worked out from the very beginning before anything loads up. It looks up where to put the player and what's the actual. It's in a fixed array, so that information. So that's fine. So for this demo, I'm heading back to the main section because that's where I've finished doing all my path nodes. But down here, I haven't done all the path nodes I want to do, so that might cause issues. So I'm taking it up to the top. You can see the top left. It's picking up all the number of paths in viewable distance, and it picks this closest one to the player. I've also got player volume. So I'm going to put crouching in here. You've got walking and running and jumping, and all that makes different volume. And if the alien's within a certain radius to that sound, it can then track back to that sound if it hasn't already found the player. So it's got vision as well in view. That's mostly working quite good. It probably needs a bit of tweaking, actually. A lot of these things a little bit of tweaking, but for the most part it's working pretty good. So yeah, eventually you'll be able to have it so you can pick stuff up and throw it at a distance and make a sound over the far end of the wall, and the alien will go over there and might give you opportunity to get the hell out of there, so to speak. Bit like Alien Isolation, same idea. Yeah. Okay, so the alien it's been tracking. I'm at a higher number. The player is as node A49. There's me. The end position is where the alien is going to, and then next is the next position, or the last one that's actually just been to as well. And it's been tracking down to get to the player, and it's finally caught up with me. And that noise was either distance or a visual. I think it's distance. Yeah. So it hasn't actually seen the player yet. So there's in view, just false. I probably should change that so it only makes a noise when it sees the player. That would be better. Okay, so there's the alien. We'll just head back to the main section. So I'll get out of this area because I haven't finished doing all the nodes in that area. So I'll just go back to the main section. Okay, he's tracking towards the player just fine. As you can see, there's a whole stack of things going on all the time. So it's when it reaches the end path, it has a wait. By default, it waits unless it detects the player, as in if the player is running, it'll just automatically detect the player, but I should change that to the sound, or if it sees the player. So in other words, the player is already in view, obviously. And then it immediately goes into pathfinding. So there's my Ripper pathfinding. A30 to E4. E4 is my position, the player, E4, and this is the player information here. Where it says E3 to E4, that's just saying, okay, my last position was E3, I've found a closer position of the player is E4, so there it is, and it says that's the distance, 20. So I've also put a limit on that check to say if the existing ones that it's able to see is not too far away, then change it, otherwise don't change it, leave it to whatever it is, because in some cases it sends the alien into the wrong direction, like it's behind all these objects. The only node that the player can see is like 150 units down the end of the room. You don't want to send the alien down there. So I limited that as well. So that fixed some of the problems. So as you can see, it's going from A30 to E4. Now it already knows it's the last path. It's already got to A30, so it's skipping to the next one. So it's going from A29 to E4 now. Now the player's been already in visual range recently, so it's still going to be considered in view. I could probably change that later, but as you can see, it's going to E, so it's almost at the player now. Okay, so yep, the player's taken off, and now the alien's got to path its way back towards the player. It does find the correct path. It should really go up this way and across, but at the point of this video, I haven't updated that. It's to allow that path. In other words, it goes here and into that boxy area, or it has to go around the long way and then back this way. But I've since changed that. But anyway, for this video, you'll see that. Oh, it took a shortcut actually. That's all right. Well, that's all E back to the A path, and it's back on A path. So that's actually, it always goes to the right path, it seems, that I've programmed. You can always just change the programming a little bit to make some more optimal connections. But yeah. Okay, so there it was trying to follow the player a little bit too early. So I've changed that the distance that it starts to follow the player, just to be a little bit closer. So, because otherwise it gets caught. But still, even when it gets caught and stuck, it'll then revert back to pathing and get around things most of the time, so that's pretty good. Okay, so the player's taken off, so it's recalculated the path. And it's decided to go straight for the player within a certain distance. Still tracking pretty well, still tracking to the player. Attacking. Gets a bit stuck there, so now it works out a new path. Yep, that's the right path. It's coming around, yep. Still coming. Still coming. Yeah, still coming. Oh dear. Okay, so there it must have got stuck. It found it couldn't follow the player a certain distance, so now it's reverting back to pathing back to the player. It does have to go a little bit of the long way, but that's because the pathing is set up that way. Yeah, so the player was at B1. Right now he's on C4, but at the time of doing the pathing, it picked up the last player. Its position being B1, so now it's going from that ease. It's all easy in there. It'll go up and around and back, and then back this way. Oh, let's do a bit of a loop there. Here it goes. Still chasing me. Still trying to attack me. So it only attacks with a certain distance. So obviously it was quite close there. I've just stopped the actual attack damage for these demos. So this will always be 100, but it's very possible that could have been damage there. And the alien will sometimes go through sections that you never planned it to, but it'll still find a way through, so that's interesting. Okay, so I've sent it to the wrong spot there. Yes, it probably needs a little bit of investigation, but this is one of the few times it went a bit off target. But still, I mean, in a real game like this, you'd want the alien to sometimes get confused and sometimes not work out where you are. That's exactly how you want it. Otherwise it's just too hard otherwise. So I'm hiding behind an object. So every time the alien gets to the end path, like here, next and end is the same, and the IDs, it's the same. It's gone through the path and finished. It has a little wait cycle, unless it sees the player. So it's in view. Every time it gets to the end position, and if it can't immediately see the player, it reverts back to not being able to see the player. You'll see it's and the top right, this is just some information. It's doing a check. It's saying, is the player in front? No, as in visual range of in front of the alien. And is the player hidden behind an object? At the moment it's hidden and also not in front of the alien. Oh, so now it's in front of the alien. The alien's changed position, but I'm still hidden, so it still can't see me. Oh, look, see, the alien went around the corner, and now it's not only in visual range, but it actually can see me now, so it just saw me just there. Okay, went off target a little bit there. Okay, so it's recalculating. Plays back in view. So anytime it goes off target and goes into a place that you wouldn't think it should, it's nothing to do with the pathfinding. The pathfinding it works quite well actually. It's my AI behavior. It needs a bit of tweaking around the edges basically.
27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 27, 19, 18, 17, 16, 11, 10, 7, 9, 8, 7, 5,
Okay, so that's that little video demo. It's for the most part it worked quite well. There's maybe one or two places there it could do with a little bit of tweaking, but I'm pretty happy with it for now. It's working quite good. As you can see, that's certainly difficult to get rid of the alien once it's on your tail, and that's on the easy level. So basically the idea is you've got to run away from the alien or run and hide and not make any sound, and it will just go to the last named position until it sees you or hears you. It won't be able to detect you, and you can sort of keep moving that way. Or you can jump off a cliff edge and go down the bottom, and it might follow you, it might not, depends. Yeah, so I've rebuilt the code. I'm pretty happy with it, really, on the whole. But yeah, it's a lot of code, a lot of functions in. So what I'll typically have moving between modes, I'll have the initiation of the node. So this is the starting of the wait cycle. I'll get it to set up the animations and do all the stuff and update everything, and then after that, it'll just sit in the wait cycle and just wait until a couple of things happen. It either sees the player or hears the player, or the time for its wait cycle is finished to path to a few other different paths, have a bit of a look around, that type of thing. If it can't find the player at all, it'll get to the end path and then look around a little bit. So I've got to code that in a bit more to try and get the visual range to actually adjust when it moves the head. That's a little bit tricky, because when the head is moving, the body is stationary, so that normally the visual range is fixed unless you rotate the player itself. But I'll try and work out a way so that when the head is moving, the actual visual range updates as well. It's not easy, but I think I can do that. Yeah, so there's a whole stack of things going on to determine what to do at different times. It can be quite complex. So any complex situation, yeah, you want to try and break it down to simple components. Keep breaking it down into the most simple components you can, and just swap between different scenarios. Yeah, like a static state machine type thing. It's just doing one thing at a time, and it just moves between modules of data. Is the best way. Yeah, so yeah, I hope you like that. Obviously this is in demo mode. I've got the ability to have rotating spotlights now, so I can put them in the level. That will be quite interesting. A bit like the real movie. Yeah. Anyway, I hope you like that. Let us know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.